Okay, so good afternoon all. And well, after those initial speakers will be a challenge, and most because I need to drive you to the break or to the music or whatever. And so we are talking here about why we need to rethink specialization. Who has suffered already about specialization or too much specialization, for example? Who calls a contact center and someone say, oh, this is not with me, it's with my partner, right? And then comes another one, you get to the other part, oh, no, that's not with me, it's with the other one. Okay, so that is a critical example of specialization. So we all get bored of it. And I have a story about it because a while ago, not in this company, but in the other one, we had a big meeting with a huge customer with a lot of zeros they paid to us. So it's a very important customer. And we prepared a meeting, and so it was in London. So I flew from Lisbon to London, used my travels. And so we get to the meeting. It's a big, conference, client conference room, full of good stuff, like a five-star hotel. So we got there. It has three people from the customer. So the CIO, so Chief Information Officer, and two high-level deputies responsible for the areas that we are supposed to be talking to. So then come what we called the company bus. So we had 12 people getting into the room and finding a seat on the table where we're going to sit to talk with the customer. So if you put on the customer shoes, this is terrible. Imagine you guys, just three of us, and come 12. So what are we going to do, guys? So that is another type of specialization, because we are on what we call pre-sale. So we are the idiots of the technology. So you have a problem and we imagine a solution. So when you get at the end, how you imagine this was complex to design a solution for the customer. So just to present ourselves, we took 20 minutes because we are 12. So anyway, this is just to have an idea about how specialization is bad if we think as being implemented these days since the beginning of industrial revolutions. So just to have an idea, I need to make a disclaimer. I'm a critical and chronic optimistic. So everything I'm saying here, it's an optimistic view, okay, or not. Anyway, there is two times now. I used to say before Christ and after Christ. Now we say before COVID and after COVID, okay? So before COVID, there is a study from Hazen and Bugin that said that about 70% of the existing jobs will require a dramatic shift due to automation and AI application to it. This in 2018. So the World Economic Forum mentioned that by 2022, but that study was also pre-COVID. So now we need to amplify the thing. 75 million jobs will be displaced by 2022 worldwide. But in our hand, now that's the optimistic part, 130 million will be created. So the balance is nice, right? 50-something million jobs, new jobs, yay! However, so when you look to what we see behind me, so we have two curves there. One is the population growth, another one is the natality growth. Okay, so now we start singing like Apollo 13, Houston, we have a problem. And why we have a problem? Because on the first industrial revolution, so at the beginning of times in 1870, so that's where started the specialization, because all the machinery was introduced to produce more goods. And that had actually a pretty good effect because we produce more jobs, more health, and therefore, the model works. So 100 years later, we got the second industrial revolution, which was also a very important one because that's where come new industries like automotive and aeronautics. And that stressed even more the specialization. Everybody remembers the, Charlie Chaplin, that movie, and he go home with that thing. Okay, yeah, that's an example of that. Then in 1969, for example, we got another industrial revolution. That's where starts the thing about what we know, computers, right? IT. And then one thing in particular called PLCs. Who knows what stands for PLC? Okay, I will tell you. It's a programmed things for automatons. So the most basic things. And with that, robots, right? The physical robots to do things. But by the way, more or less about that time, as you can see on the title, there is one gentleman called Keynes that said, well, guys, wait a second. We are getting in trouble in coping with the speed of the evolution. 1963, okay? I was not even born at that time. Anyway, then comes in the year 2000, the fourth industrial revolution, which is internet. You guys you're already born after internet, so lucky bastards. But anyway, when we start with internet, we were very happy if we can do a download with 128 kbytes per second. You don't know what it is, but it's very stressful. Very stressful. So imagine making, hacking of a movie that is several gigabytes and whatever. So it was very complicated by then. But, all this time, the specialization was implemented more and more and more and more. So on between the second and the third industrial revolution, we had 2 world wars, right? We had 2 world wars. And with that, the population decreased a lot and then grew a lot. But at the same time, the specialization became even more important because we had to cope with 2 things. One, during the war, to produce more planes that the Germans can take it down, more submarines that the other ones can build, etc., etc. And then after the war, we had to cope with the pace for the recovery. So specialization, it's the solution. And a lot of other industries born at the same time. And we start thinking, well, if this works, why not? Let's implement specialization everywhere. That's why when we call a call center, is always the neighbor. Because the principle of the industrial specialization was transposed to all other industries. And that has had a huge impact in everything, even the schools. We train people to be specialized, to be in a narrow thing. We train other people to do this thing and do this thing. Oh, that I don't know that thing. This is another one. And then we have the company buzz. We become a lot of people to solve a problem. Might be interesting or not, anyway. So let's take what is the human task, what we perform these days. So a human function, so any job has multiple functions, and the function is decomposed in tasks, right? Some tasks are very complex, some others don't. But let's think, what is job specialization? So job specialization is a process in which most often the employee's skills are combined very often with some equipment to perform a task. And as the economists love to say, stress the asset. Stress the asset in manufacturing is stress the asset. So it's using the asset as much as possible, as long as possible, to obtain the max outcome as possible. The issue is when we add a human to the asset, because the human becomes part of the asset. So we stress the human as much as possible until sometime he dies. Anyway, so there is another part is, due to this job specialization and the impacts that it implies on the society, what we are seeing is a society in which most of the people, and that is the sad part, most of the people can live a happy life, a non-retarded happy life, without the need of developing new skills, new knowledge, or something related to. And that is scary, because there is actually a study that shows that approximately only 10% of the people in the planet develop additional knowledge and skills during his useful lifetime. So, like Apollo 13, Houston, we have a problem. And now you guys start thinking about what this is related to the AI, right? AI stands for artificial intelligence, okay? And so, today's artificial intelligence, it's used mainly for a smart pattern recognition, in which AI takes lots of data and then performs some given task and optimizes that. And then my friend João is going to explain how all this tricky thing works. But anyway, So the objective is then start replacing the humans in some tasks. So the function is a set of tasks, okay? So we are seeing this, but AI is taking parts of the task. So we are automating things. So the replacement is not like this, but is progressive. And then as more complex the function is, longer the time is where AI is assisting instead of replacing. For example, that is a very interesting thing, but let's think about how is the percentage you guys think in the world that the tasks are repetitive and low value, if we can say like that. So in the bottom of the chain, low value tasks. Just give a number. Come on. 30%. Okay, next. You are too low. You are too optimistic, even more than me. Anyway, conservatively, it's about 50 to 60%, which means a lot of people. So a lot of people are on the bottom of the chain. So my previous picture before that was a bit more aggressive because it's like the things that compress, right? Because AI actually is acting on the two extremes of the value chain. One, the low value, perceived low value function, repetitive functions, like a truck driver. Why we need drivers on the truck nowadays? The truck goes itself. Why we need a driver on the taxi? You just send them, the coordinates and just jump in the car and he goes. So wherever you go, that's like someone told me yesterday, this is the more dumb work that we can have. So that is the type of things that we need to think about the jobs and the job specialization. So, but in other extreme, the high precision jobs, imagine a neurosurgeon and someone needs an operation inside the brain. Do you want to have that operation made by a human or by a robot? Who wants the human? You guys are crazy. Completely crazy. Because if the guy, for example, or the lady took too much coffee, you are in trouble. If the lady or the gentleman had a love problem, you are in trouble. And you can start putting all the constraints around, you're going to have a trouble. A very serious trouble, because you can't change anything. So if you touch on the wrong side, you are in serious trouble. Anyway, these are the type of functions that will be compressed and firstly assisted by AI and then replaced by AI. This has another side effect on the meantime, which is the downgrade of the function. Give an example. We were involved in the project in the Netherlands about detecting cancer in the lung. And initially, there is a set of people that take, the X-rays, the images, and look at the things, try to understand if the tumor is growing or whatever. Now, so we applied AI on it, and now the same group of doctors, instead of 10 patients, they do 100. But the analysis of the picture is no longer that radiologist that does the analysis, but someone else with less training. So a downgrade on the function. Why? Because AI is doing that for him. So we don't need the same skills, so we move people down on the chain, and eventually they go off. So this is, let's say, the scary part. So now you guys should be scaring, okay? So the happy part is, some people say, well, but in the past, we had always, let's say, a balance on this. So we create more jobs. Now you guys should recall the second slide, which shows the population growth and the natality rate. So we have an issue, which is we are having much more people, older people, so less young people to take the jobs of the older people, which by nature, it's more difficult to gain new skills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's think on the first to the second industrial revolution, 100 years. Life expectancy, 28 years. So we have about 4 lifetimes to get adapted. Second to third industrial revolution, 100 years. Expectancy of life, 30-something years. So we have about 3 lifetimes to adapt. So we can go to the third to the fourth, just 30 years. So half lifetime, because the expectancy is 56 years. So when we go to the fourth to the fifth, as I call it, which is the AI on 2015, it's just 5 years. So it's 20, 1/5 of the lifetime. And now the progression is even faster. So as Einstein once said, I guess, the only constant in life is change. So get ready for it. And that's the important things about what we are discussing here. So it's a basic law of nature, right? To survive is not the fittest, is the one that can adapt faster. So the fourth, let's again, pre-COVID and after COVID. So what COVID, so the momentum, whatever that means, highlighted is absolute need to rethink specialization. So who wants to be specialized in one thing? It's dangerous. So actually, it's a very life-threatening thing. So because most of the population, again, doesn't need to develop new skills because it's happy doing all the time. So our brain is lazy. That's why we love patterns, because our brain is lazy. So when you start repeating something, you do it just because. So you don't need to think about it. That's why Einstein had all the suits of the same color, because he doesn't think about it. So that's the problem, because large part of the society, shortly, we can debate if it's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever, but large part of the society will be decommissioned. And some of them will be happy because they can retire early, they can, do whatever they want, but some others will learn new skills and apply for new jobs, but unfortunately was not the good job, so we'll get decommissioned again. Some others may end up in the, unemployed for a long time. The expectancy of life is growing now. We are expecting 83 to 84 years in Portugal, by the way. And I think on the next 2050 or something is 120 years. Gosh, what we are doing here. So the idea here is reshaping the society, reshaping the way we are organized, the schools, the way we teach, the way we transmit knowledge to the youngest, and give them more things about curiosity, critical thinking, language, communications, all those type of experience as much as possible. Learn a lot of things, try a lot of things, do like our first speaker, never give up. Try it. You don't like this, do another one. As much as you learn, more agile and more able to adapt you are. Don't stay one thing, oh, that's my neighbor. It's like nature, as you show it very, very, very well. So plants adapt very well, animals adapt very well, and their lifetime is very short. So they had to develop that capacity that we, lazy bastards, don't develop. Sorry about the word. Anyway, next slide. Oh gosh, doesn't work. Here you go. So there are 3 questions I think everybody should do for ourselves or even to others, is about something. Doesn't matter if it's the AI revolution or whatever it is. Why this happening today? If something happened, question why. This is the most important question in your lives, is why. Never lose the why. It's so nice. Why this is happening today. And then what that means for you, what that means for your community, for your family. And then the other question is how. How you get relevant on that momentum, on that change, on that event. It's very simple, just 3 questions. Doesn't mean if you can answer, you have the problem solved, but at least you start thinking about and start seeing what ways you can drive to get relevant to the change, because the change will be happening, in 1 year, in 6 months, and suddenly it's all day long and you have a new change in your job, in your life, in the world. So that's the thing. So to survive, actually this could be physically survive, because there are some studies that point that, eventually, people can start committing suicide and, get depressed, blah, blah, blah. So that's a pessimist part of the story. I don't like that. But anyway, the most important thing is time to adapt. We have to have time to adapt. And the time is relative, because it depends on our ability to understand the change. First of all, we need to be aware of the change. If we don't recognize the change, we don't need to change anyway, because there is no change. So if we be aware of the change, the next thing is understanding the change. So if we can respond to those 3 questions, we understand the change. And then, if we have time and ability, flexibility, and the most important thing, we are willing to change. And that's the thing, like the first speaker, he had the willingness to change. Something happens and he changes, he adapts. And that's the key point. So we have to be flexible enough to do this as much as possible. So to me, you come from the technology world, so we can say you guys are making the weapons to kill us anyway. But to me, it's more like a mission to explain to you guys, youngest and not that young, whatever, that we need to do everything in our power to improve the continuous learning. In IT, we have one thing called CI/CD, which stands for continuous integration, continuous delivery. So let's make a continuous learning. Continuous learning, and continuous is challenging our knowledge. Do we know enough about something? Do we know enough things? Let's stretch the comfort zone and question ourselves, but not only, question ourselves like never before. Question what you are doing all the time. Question what, as someone mentioned about the rules, right? I'm always questioning the rules, always. If I don't like the rule, I don't follow because it's not good. And unfortunately, anyway. Just to finalize, the time for change is now. And you people, the youngest on the room, you are on the exact moment in which you can do that change in yourselves, choosing what you want to do. If you want to be specialized or if you want to be an expert. And there is a big difference between the two, right? Specialization is, I know it's not with me, it's with the neighbor. Expertise is like a plumber. So if you have a plumber, what he does, he knows a lot of things. You get surprised what knowledge that person has. He can do a diagnosis in your entire home, and you just have a little problem there. And that's the thing. So if you want to be an expert, it's one thing. If you want to be a specialized person, it's a different thing. So with that, change. It's the only constant in your life. So be ready for it. Thank you very much.